And other things to do. So. And then just like.
I was more than
Oh, you guys. I know, I typed this out today.
I just wrote mine. I feel like I'm not gonna everything.
My handwriting is poor, so it's just that it's just better.
You guys are ready to go. I'll get started. Are you all ready? Get everything you need, water, whatever. Okay. We should try to dim the lights. Can everybody see the screen okay, or?
Yeah.
We can close it. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Maybe that'll help you.
Oh, do you want me to do a microphone test?
Yeah, we're also on Zoom.
Yeah. Is our audio on and everything?
Can you give me thumbs up if you can hear me talking?
Oh, yeah, you got a thumbs up.
Thank you.
What's over there off there? Those off, right by the street.
Oh, okay.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, we'll get started. We have no other business than the presentation today. So I'm the speaker coordinator for the chapter. I'm John Hinchon. So I'll tell you about our presentation, and then after that, if there's any discussion, we can bring it up. Our presenters this evening are with the Cache Creek Conservancy. They're habitat restoration specialists Ivy Lynne and Lynne Haralson. Ivy graduated from UC Davis with a major in plant biology and a minor in wildlife, fish, and conservation biology. She worked as a seasonal habitat restoration technician at the Cache Creek Council. Later, she joined the Conservancy as a habitat restoration specialist. In her current role, she oversees greenhouse management and maintains the seed garden and memorial garden. Lynne is the operations manager of the Conservancy. She has worked in construction and facilities management in various trades in California and Oregon. She oversees management of on-the-ground projects, both in the nature preserve and within the lower Cache Creek resources management plan areas. Their talk tonight will cover the history and restoration work at Cache Creek Conservancy and native plants around the nature preserve. So, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here, either in person or on Zoom. We've got a couple on Zoom. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background to the organization and the history of Cache Creek and its sordid mining history. So the Cache Creek Conservancy was founded in 1995, established in 1996. We are just a 501c3 public benefit corporation. We have a board of directors of, how many are there right now? 7, 8? We have a couple spots open, so if you know anybody, get the word out. And then, like you said in the intro, we operate the Cache Creek Nature Preserve and also the lower Cache Creek Resources Management Plan area, which is roughly from the Cape Dam to I-5. And that is sort of the area that was mined. They call it the sand and gravel overlay.
Where's the Cape May?
In the town of Cape, which I know doesn't narrow that down entire.
Good enough.
Good enough. Okay. Yeah, it's just upstream of Cape a little bit, but it's close enough that they've just sort of dubbed it the Cape Dam. And that is a bladder dam operated by flood control. And that's the dam that it's not a year-round dam. They inflate it during the irrigation season in the summer to divert the water from Cache Creek into the north and south irrigation systems for summer farming. Yeah, and so, what we do is restoration. It's kind of a unique organization that we don't really do conservation like a lot of other ecological organizations do. We do restoration, and that is because after mining, there wasn't a whole lot to conserve. So, yeah. So mining, Cache and Putah Creeks were both mined a little bit early on. It's just the gravel in Putah Creek was pretty subpar, so that fizzled out pretty quickly. Which is lucky for those on Putah Creek that we didn't have to have this gravel fight. But the gravel in Cache Creek is amazing. It is some of the strongest gravel around. It's high demand. There's engineering specs that specify Cache Creek gravel. It was used to rebuild San Francisco after the 1906 fire. It was used in the mid-50s to build Monticello Dam. And in the early days, when you were pulling tons of gravel out, one mule cart at a time, the technology wasn't really there to extract gravel fast enough that the creek system couldn't replenish itself after flood systems. But during sort of the suburban development push of the 50s, from the 50s to the 70s, technology caught up and gravel mining exploded. And it was all in-channel mining, just in-channel strip mining. Companies could just buy a plot of land, strip mine the gravel out, walk away and say, cool, next person's problem. And by the 70s, people were starting to realize that this is not a sustainable way to do things. And gravel wars. So the neighbors are getting really upset. You have a gravel company buy the property downstream from you, mine that out, and that would cause back erosion. And suddenly you've lost, 10 acres of your field to the creek channel because of the gravel mining up or downstream. So things were getting pretty heated because there was no regulations on mining really whatsoever. So people started speaking out, started fighting for some change in legislature. The early efforts, really nothing came of it. The gravel mining companies had a lot of money and they didn't want to change what they were doing. But by the late 80s, they were starting to come up with some really effective solutions of how to make this mining, this sort of necessary mining. We need gravel for our infrastructure, how to make it sustainable. And so some new studies were done. The Army Corps of Engineers came in and conducted a feasibility study on how to rehabilitate the badly abused creek. And by 1986, they passed a new law prohibiting mining in the creek channel effective immediately. All mining had to cease in the creek channel, and all new mines had to be off-channel deep pit mines. And that is the current model that is used on Cache Creek. But there's 100 years of mining that had already happened that had to be sort of fixed as far as the creek health. So fees were imposed on the new mining to pay into funds for both the restoration of the damaged in-channel and also the long-term management of future post-mining sites, because now the gravel companies do have to rehabilitate the site, kind of get it back to the habitat value, and then they hand it off to the county, or they get it back to an agriculture setting and then sell it to a farmer. But at the time when these fees were imposed and somebody had to start rehabilitating the creek, there was really no organization at that time to do that work. And so the Yolo County Aggregate Producers Association, which was the combined sort of lobbying group for the gravel companies, they launched the Cache Creek Conservancy to then implement this work that their fees needed to make happen. So now we have this peace agreement, so that we have the Cache Creek Conservancy, and the land is turned, the permits for the in-creek work are held by the county of natural resources. The post-mining pits are deeded over to the county. And so we have this post relationship with Yolo County Natural Resources to get all this work done under the direction of what they call the Cache Creek Area Plan. And we all continue work on always improving. I mean, even in the last 20, 30 years, we've gotten closer and closer to an even more sustainable sort of system of between natural resource extraction and habitat value being kept. Next. So the Cache Creek Area Plan is a combination of three separate plans. One is the Cache Creek Resources Management Plan, which sort of leads the creek restoration and recovery of habitat value of the post-ordinance mining or the pre-ordinance mining. The Cache Creek Improvement Program, which guides the management of the geomorphology and bank stabilization and erosion control strategies, and then the off-channel mining plan, which governs the pit mining activities. And then if you are ever really curious about gravel mining on Cache Creek, all of these plans can be viewed on the Yolo County Natural Resources website. They actually have a really interesting document library. I think it's interesting. I guess that's subjective. Next one. So, which brings us to the Cache Creek Conservancy. We were started, as I said, to implement the CCRMP, the Cache Creek Resources Management Plan. But our mission has grown since we now operate the nature preserve and do more educational sort of activities and more fun things than just our, restoration stuff. So restoration, our education internships, which you'll go into a little bit more later, and then our tending and gathering garden, which is a really amazing project. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the tending and gathering garden. But it's a 2-acre site on the nature preserve that was started by actually UC Davis undergrad. And its focuses on native plants and traditional ecological land management. And so that's been a real boon to have. So the nature preserve, has everybody been there? Has anybody been there? No? Yeah, okay, most everybody. So it was originally part of the Gordon Land Grant, which is, I think, the first land grant received from the Mexican government by a non-Mexican citizen. And that was about 8,000 acres at the time. So obviously we just whittled it down to 130. And it got sold off to somebody, a couple different people. But it was a barley field. It was a sheep farm. And in the 70s, it was bought up by Tykert to do a little mining. And then they mined that out. It's not a terribly big pit compared to some of the projects they have now. And they tried to return it, they tried to return the pit into a cornfield. It didn't work out. It was kind of sludgy and a little too wet to support corn. And somebody had the idea, why don't we just do habitat and turn it into a wetland? And they were like, yes, do it. Absolutely. Let's give it a try. And it's really become a model. At the time in the late 90s, that wasn't really an existing model for how to restore a gravel mine. And now you see them all over the state. These mines turned wetland. And in 1998, it was turned over to the county to become the Cache Creek Nature Preserve. And in 1999, it opened its doors to the public. And the first executive director of the Nature Preserve, not of the Conservancy, but of the Nature Preserve portion, passed away very suddenly in 2007, and the preserve was subsequently named after him. So now it is the Jan T. Lowry Cache Creek Nature Preserve. And it's a great place. It's beautiful. It's great for a hike. Great place to take your kids. Got a little quote from Andrew Fulks there. It's got some of the original barns from when it was a sheep farm. And our visitor center is currently closed because we just had to trash one of our old rotten buildings, and our new one isn't open yet. So I know it says visitor center up there, but
Stay tuned.
a little ice on that, and come back in a few months and we'll have our visitors back up and running. It's also a really unique site in that it has so many different habitat types. We have a little bit of everything there. This is 5 of our habitats on this map. It's also home to a ton of species, and it's a huge spot, desirable spot for bird watching. And I think we've got a rare bird right now. No, it's the one that it's that like yellow-breasted. Anyway, we have a rare bird. We've had birders coming out to check.
Sapsucker.
Yes, the sapsucker.
Yes.
So it's not on this, unfortunately. You go to eBird and look up the sapsucker.
Yes.
Next. And then, so we have our restored wetland habitat that was the gravel pit. And it's a completely man-made pit because it was a gravel mine. We shaved the islands, and it's fed with water from the irrigation canal system. So we have kind of a control of how much water is there at any given time, assuming there's water in the irrigation system, which in 2021, our pit went dry for the first time, which was really rough to see. It was really sad to see. We did get rid of a lot of bullfrogs when that happened, so there's a little silver lining, but we really don't want that to happen again. And then when it gets too full, it'll drain back into the creek. So it's not creek water that's not hydrologically connected to the creek. But it is amazing because it was sort of the first wetland to kind of get back into this area, because most of the it used to all be flood zone, but with levying the, Sacramento River and everything and bringing in the farmland. I heard that when they first started putting water in there's kind of some muddy pits, and within the first year, they started seeing birds in there that really nobody had seen in the area for a couple of decades. And so that was really nice. It's definitely a hot spot. We get lots of animal babies, lots of bird babies every year. And then our oak savanna habitat. Luckily, when it was a mine, they did leave an area of very ancient oak woodlands. And so we have kind of one of the larger areas of oak savanna habitat in the county. And the understory is mainly just grassland. There was a big fire that came through in 2007 and took out a lot of the understory of our oak savanna, and we're kind of bringing it back. But the oaks there are beautiful. It's a great place to walk around and hike, and always deer. There's always deer out there. It's wonderful. Our grassland habitat, the grassland of the nature preserve used to be a truck turnout. And so there was a lot of rehabilitation to do on that area. There's still a little patchy, I think, where some of the areas were pretty compacted, but we've done a lot of work getting our grassland up to snuff. And I think our burning and grazing programs that we've implemented in the last few years have had a huge impact on the grassland health. It's looking pretty nice. And then our little riparian corridor, because the creek runs to the bottom portion of the nature preserve. That whole area was pretty scoured out in the 60s. All the trees had kind of been cleared out for ag, and then the creek, sort of ate everything back. They actually reinforced the banks with cars in the 60s, because they used to buy junked cars smashed and you lay them on the bank and you cable them together. I think there's still about 160 cars hidden under there. If you walk a riparian trail and you look, you can spot some fenders, some classic car fenders. But since then, it's really filled in. It's a beautiful cottonwood forest. And we're working on really bringing the understory along too. There's always invasives that we got to work on. So back to our tending and gathering garden, it's a unique site in that we've been managing it with traditional methods since it was put in 2003, I think, which means that we've been burning in there since 2003. And when the woman who began the garden, she was a UC Davis undergrad, she was a landscape architecture major, and she just was reading about basket weaving and the plants that you need for that, and the management that needs to be done to get the right materials for basket weaving, to get the plants to grow in the way that they need to grow. She wasn't native, and she was, how do you design a garden for those purposes? And what an interesting question. So she reached out to the California Indian Basket Weavers Association and got hooked up with a basket weaver named Kathy Wallace, and together they built this garden. They designed it, they built it, and then they built the concept. And they went around to try to find a place they could install it. And at the time, when you're asking somebody to let you plant and then burn on their property, it was, I think we were the third place that she tried, according to stories I've heard. Because people are like, it's a cool idea, but we're just not comfortable with you burning here. It's really risky. What if something goes wrong? We don't want that liability. But Jan Lowry was really supportive of it, and 2 acres around the wetland was dedicated to this project. And it has been really amazing and has given the Cache Creek Nature Preserve some opportunities that we would not have had otherwise. And this is the text from the welcome sign. So this text was put together. Bertha Mitchell was the last native speaker of Wintun language, the Hill dialect of Wintun language. And she passed away in when Bertha passed away? 2016? Yeah. And so now the Yochidehi Wintu Nation is reclaiming their language and they're teaching the kids, but she was the first, the last native speaker. English was her second language and Wintu was her first. And so she spent a lot of time out here in the last few years of her life. And and our welcome sign is composed of a lot of conversations that were had with her about how she grew up learning to treat the land and to conduct yourself with when you're communicating with the plants and just being around the plants and really seeing plants as companions and not just that you're part of the landscape and that you're part of the ecosystem, not sort of this hierarchy that we Westerners like to think of. Next slide. Another thing that we've been able to do, because we have been burning that site for 20 years, in the beginning, it was just, the steering committee of the Tenny and Gathering Guard would say, hey, we need these plants burned. And we'd have some, farmhands come out and burn some stuff. But in 2019, we started partnering with the Keepers of the Flame class at UC Davis. And that is a undergraduate course about cultural fire. And they've been coming out and doing explicitly cultural fire on our site, which is a little different than prescribed fire. But it's all for the health of the plants. It's not for, fuels reduction or anything like that. It's because these plants crave it. California plants absolutely crave burning because they've been managed with burning for millennia. So because we have this relationship with cultural burn practitioners, we're able to partner with CAL FIRE and get a big burning grant. And Yocha has actually approached us and said, hey, we're trying to get our fire practitioner sort of knowledge back because that was sort of taken from them during the suppression years. And so we're all working together to kind of get more fire back on the land. And these are some shots from this is from a burn that we did with CAL FIRE. This was us. This is a cultural burn awareness workshop with CAL FIRE so that CAL FIRE could come out and learn how to burn for ecological health. So this is our burning of our grasslands. And we got some really nice wildflowers coming up after we burned that out. Wildflowers that we knew were there, but hadn't really been doing well in a couple of years. So pretty mellow fire. You can see nobody's wearing fire gear. You burn at the right times of year and it's mild. You wear not rubber shoes, I guess. Make sure your shoes don't melt. And other than that, you're pretty good to just do your thing. And then this was a fire that we did. This was when we were burning our wetlands. This one we did in April of 2022. And all of that tule thatch had been building up for about 10 years. That because we don't have flows in the wetlands like you would in the creek, all that tule thatch couldn't escape. And it just got thicker and thicker and thicker, and none of the new shoots could come in. And we burned it off all at once. And it was a massive fire, massive for me. The CAL FIRE guys were like, oh, it's just another Tuesday. But it was, and our tule in the wetland hasn't looked that good in decades. So it was a really nice experience. And on the subject of fire adapted plants, we got our plant. I'm not the plant expert.
So here are some fire adapted native plants at the Cache Creek Nature Preserve. They love being burned, and some of the plants after they burn, they have great value for the California Native people too. I would just like pinpoint some because some of them will kind of come back later. I do want to talk about yarrow. It's right there with the white flowers. You probably all like seen it before. There's both native and introduced one. They kind of different in chromosome numbers, so you can't really tell it by morphological differences. And they're like the native and introduced species, they hybridize a lot, so you can't really tell if it is a native or not, but mostly the yarrow that you see with the white flowers are the common yarrow, and they're the native one. And they're not highly flammable. They're not highly flammable, and they spread by underground rhizome, which is like underground stem. So once the fire hit like the upper ground vegetation, they can resprout quickly because they can store more nutrients in their underground stem and come back later. And the red bud down there, it's pretty sure you all seen it. It's all in full bloom right now. It's really cool magenta color and pink color-ish. We have it all throughout the nature preserve. I recommend that you visit us and come do a little hike with us. The redbud, after fire, they resprout very quickly. And usually the resprouts from the fire, they grow straighter, and that's make them a good, lost my slides. Make them a good material for basketry and like waving because they're straight and good material. The deer grass on the right over here, they look clumpy on the pictures, but that's because after fire, it really helped them to burn out all those debris, and it helped them increase the flower stalks. That's why it looks so clumpy and fuzzy. When it's not burned, it's just little set looking stalk. But after they burn, it gets super happy. Just like some example of the fire adapted nature native plants out here. And then the next, we want to talk about some educational program we have at the preserve. As Lynn mentioned, we do have our internship. We also have a TGG and traditional ecological acknowledgement program for the high school students, I think only. And hopefully this year we can have more like fun educational activity that you can bring your kids and younger youth come out. But just more about the intern program, we have 3 intern programs right now. We have the bird next box monitoring and bird habitat enhancement team. That's done by my coworker Felicia. She is the restoration biologist at the preserve. She's awesome. She do a lot of wildlife and bird stuff. And next, I am kind of like helping the ecological horticulture team. I have 2 of my past interns out there in the back. I want to shout out to them. And the third one is our wildlife monitor team. And this is just some pictures. One of my intern was keying a plant on no plants we found at the preserve using the Jepson e-flora. And then that's the bird box. They're like trying to put the bird box back. And then it's my art intern that's doing like germination stuff at the greenhouse. So far we have these 3 teams at the preserve. And then just a little bit coming back to the topic that Lynn mentioned, restoration is really return the landscape to kind of maximize the habitat value so that it's like the where it used to be can back there. And then in the conservancy, we also do a lot of weed management. We also call it creek spray. We're kind of responsible to do invasive plant control on the 14.5 miles of the riparian corridor from Cape Dam and Tao to Yolo since 2001. There's a 26 invasive plant species that targeted, but today I'm gonna only bring the 2 most concerned boo-boo at here. So the main concern is tamarisk and arundo. So right here, it's a picture of the tamarisk. It's also called the salt cedar. It got this like very scale and greenish foliage. And when it flowers, it got those like, it's sort of pretty like pink flowers, but one flowers can produce, it can produce thousands of seed on just like one flower stalk, and it really outcompete the native plants. And just like amount of the seed they put in, just like shade out all the native plants and don't provide any like very valuable wildlife habitats. So it's a big no-no for us. The next one, it's the arundo. It's also called giant reed. People mistaken it as bamboo. It's actually not bamboo. It's worse than bamboo. It's not good. People brought them in. It's like I think they're from Asia and like more tropical region. People brought it in because they thought it's a good erosion control plan, but actually it takes 5 times more water needs than native plants. So absolutely hell of
It's not good for erosion.
Yeah, not for erosion. It's increase more erosion. So this is the 2 main focus we have. I will talk about later what kind of treatment we have for like invasive plants, but here is just showing off how before there's like dens of tamarisk and arundo out there, you really can't plant any like native plants out there, and it doesn't really provide a good habitats for the animals there. And this is after we treat it. You can see there's still some remnants of tamarisk patches, but you can see how I think those are curly brushes and mufettes coming in. So like slowly open up space for native plants to like come up.
thinking when they started in 2001, the banks of Cache Creek were like solid tamarisk. There was nothing else. It was wild.
These are some of the treatment method we have. So before that you see was chemical. We do spray herbicide on the weeds there. And there's like different herbicide and depends on the county and province and state. They have different policy on which herbicide you use and like how much you use. Tons of regulation. And sometimes for single plants, if you spray the same herbicide over and over again, they slowly build up resistance. So it wouldn't work like anymore. There's also more on chemical stuff because I kind of like chemistry. For the herbicide, there's two different ones, the contact one and the systematic one. The contact herbicide, if you just spray it and you contact with the plants, then it's like only the contact part is like die. But then the more systematic part is that it kind of like kill the root system. So like basically kill the whole roots plant. We also have mechanical. Also have mechanical treatment. So sometimes we have like too dense of vegetation. We're trying to use like heavy equipment to remove the plants. We also got manual. Put on your gloves, just dig in, get your hands dirty. And I want to thank a lot of our volunteers out there, help us with a lot of invasive out there. We also have biological control. Lynne kind of mentioned it about grazing. So we do bring the sheep every year, every few years.
It's been every year lately.
Yeah, every year to bring the sheep to help us graze. It depends on the types of animals. So sometimes goats, they eat everything. And sometimes if you don't trim them well enough, they would jump out from the fence and start eating your native plants. Sometimes if you bring sheep and like cattle, they are more eating more herbaceous plants and they're more grazing low to the ground. The other biological control we have here is the tamarisk beetle, which is insects. And then shown here is a tamarisk beetle. The larvae, they will lay eggs on the tamarisk and the larvae will start like nibbling the leaves. They are not native, they're introduced to here, but apparently they only host on tamarisk. So it's been doing good.
I don't think they survive here very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'd rather die than eat anything other than tamarisk, so.
And then that's like the overall treatment method we have for our invasive weed. We also have a creek walks that's public invited. So if you're interested, it's gonna walk the whole Cache Creek.
Yeah, it's a 3-day walk. Monica. It was, so as part of the Cache Creek Resources Management Plan and Cache Creek Area Plan in general, the entire Cache Creek Resources Management Plan from KPA to I-5 has to be looked at by the Technical Advisory Committee, which is a geomorphologist, a hydrologist, a hydraulic engineer, and a riparian biologist that are in contract with the county. And we just walk it 3 days. I think we end up walking 15 to 20 miles a day. I was tracking it last year because I had my cool Apple Watch. But you know, if it's wet, you got to walk through it. You know, this is nothing. I mean, I think last year we had some like hip deep areas that we just had to walk through. But it's really the best way to see the progress, what needs to be done in the creek, what's going well, what's not going well. And then afterwards, the annual report is generated, and those can be looked at the county website too. So every year, the Technical Advisory Committee generates a report saying, here's what's working, here's what we recommend for the next year, before the next walk. And these walks are open to the public if you're brave. You can join us. But sorry. Okay. And she'll be on the Creek Walk this year in a backpack.
I'm gonna remind CNPS this meeting of when the walk actually is.
So the walk is usually in early June. They kind of don't announce exactly when it's going to be until closer to. They kind of announce at the last
That's
minute.
what I mean.
Yeah.
I know.
You can send an email.
Yeah, we can
John
send
and
email
then
out.
after we
Yeah.
know the dates, and then we can send it to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here are some like kind of active restoration projects we have here. Last winter, just the past winter, we have our like coral restoration project. It's actually because the old visitor center removal, we have to take down a elderberry tree, and elderberry tree is fully protected here. That's because the Valley elderberry longhorn beetle, it looks like this. And elderberry is the only host plant for this beetle. They drew a little hole and go into the center pith of the elderberry because the center pith is very soft. So, which make the beetle very easy to live in there. They take out nutrients and water from the elderberry, but because the population is like, they're federal endangered, so the population is not so big, and usually just like 1 or 2 beetles live in the elderberry, so it won't really hurt the elderberry when they live in the pith and take out nutrients. Because the beetle is fully protected, so this elderberry, and there's like very strict law about when to trim elderberry. You're not allowed to trim elderberry. You're only allowed to trim elderberry between November to February, and you can only trim branches that is less than 1 inch diameter, because any branches that is greater than 1 inch diameter could be a potential great habitats for the longhorn beetle. So the because we take down one, so we have to do like a mitigation project that's like offsite, that's not in our preserve. Looks the map a little bit small, but we are right on the left corner, Cache Creek Nature Preserve.
Yeah, preserve is right here. And then our
And then-
mitigation project,
It's right there. So it's like a 10 miles drive.
and that is also a reclaimed gravel mine from the early 90s, the Corral site.
And then the objective for this mitigation project is really improve habitat connectivity, so that the longhorn beetle will still have like a habitats out there for them. It's also widen the riparian zone, since it used to be like used to be a gravel mining site, and also increase native species diversity. For that one elderberry, we planted 54 elderberry plus 32 companion plants. So one elderberry tree removal equivalent to 92 plants in total. So we plant a lot there.
There's a.
There's a
ton of
tons.
elderberry.
Yeah.
There's just this one fairly mature shrub that was in the path of removing this modular building. Yeah.
Yeah, we just remove one and then we planted 92. But it also helped establish more elderberry shrub there to like helping kind of replenish the habitats for the elderberry longhorn beetle. And here's some pictures. So we partnered this mitigation project with the Yolo RCD, the Yolo County Resource Conservation District. Here's like a little introduction circle that we also collaborate with a lot with the Cache Creek Council. They have their One Creek program that they have their seasonal restoration habitat technicians out there. So they all we come in a circle, talk about our background and why we're here, why we're interested in like doing conservation and restoration. And then these are just like some materials that we have there. There's like a strict regulation on what kind of plants you need the cage and like tubes to protect from deers and rodents. So there's like all the prepping materials. And the almost finished sites looks like this. So we line up the irrigation and put out the T-posts, and then you can sort of see some plants there, and then we have like different flag color to indicate different plant species. And it's fully done. I don't know if
This was in winter, so all of the plants just looked like a little stick.
Yeah.
So color coding helped.
Yeah, so hopefully maybe next time I can send some picture of updates what the plants are looking like right now. But I'm gonna moving a little bit gear to native plants at preserve. No more invasive. No more the boo-boo. It's a good thing now. Kind of just bring back to what kind of habitats we have at the preserve. So I will kind of like going through the different native plants out here, but based on the habitats we have. I will start with our wetland. So, of course, we have Tule. Tule is in the sedge family, the Cyperaceae. I don't know if anybody heard of the little saying that rushes are round and sedges has edges. So sometimes when you cut the Tule, the mature Tule in like cross section, just like horizontal cut, you can see the little triangular stem. So edges up there. We also have our valley sage, which is the Santa Barbara sage. Santa Barbara sage out there. It's also in the sedge family, but this one is kind of like not usual. They don't have those like triangular stem as the tule, but again, they have edges. The next one's cattail it's in the Typhaceae family. And we use tule and cattail, we use a lot of them like in kind of good buddy. And I will show you later why is it kind of important. Here's a little canoe or kayak that
It's a tule boat.
tule
Yeah, it's a
boats.
traditional boat, because the tules have that sort of, how would you describe the texture inside of them?
Spongy.
It's, yeah, spongy texture, and they float, so you can make boats, get enough bundles together and you can make yourself a raft-like boat. And some of this one, just like I think this one was made by students. It's kind of a first time, but you get the professional traditional tule boat makers, and those boats are big and they're impressive. It's pretty cool. There's a guy right now, I think he's Pomo, it's up in Clear Lake area. He's building a tule boat right now and is gonna paddle to Hawaii. That's his,
It's a long one.
yeah. I'm sure there'll be a support boat. I don't think you can.
Why did you build it?
Well, to get from point A to point B, for the most part, before we came in and started levying everything, when this valley flooded, it really flooded. There was a sort of a journal entry from a European guy who was here in the 1840s or something, and there was some big flood, and he wrote in his journal about having to canoe from Davisville to Black's Corner, which is Zamora. So if you know where Zamora, yeah. So
What year was that?
I don't. I mean, had to have been in the mid 1800s, early mid 1800s. Do you know, Jim?
Yeah, I think it's making reports. There's also a report, someone canoed from Settlers Fort to Gordon's homestead.
Yeah, which is basically where the preserve is. Yeah, so I mean, you had a heavy flood year, and Fuda Creek, Cache Creek, Sacramento River would all flood, and just everything was wet. So unless you wanted to trudge neck deep, then just putting a quick tule boat together to go about your business was probably the way to go.
And then next here is a little tule bundle. So as Lynn mentioned, we have the Leo Poke, which is the Good Fire workshop every year, and then a lot of time we use cattail and tule, so you kind of use like a almost ripe cattail that's not fluffed up and like explode yet, but it's just hanging there, and then the little seeds are like kind of little loosened, and then you wrap it around by dry tule, and then because the cattail are kind of like fluffed up, it help kind of slow down the fire, but the dry tule, it's kind of like good to catch on fire, so which the whole bundle make it like a good fire carrier. So sometimes if you want to ignite a different grassland, you can just like line up the tule bundle and then just kind of like move it to a different place and line up that place. It's really fun. If you come to Lego Poke this year, you can make a tule bundle and have fun with us. But here's just like there's more wetland plants out there, but I'm just put out some like representative so that we can finish today's presentation, because there's more good ones in the back. The next one I want to talk about, it's our native grassland. I know sometimes when I first started grassland, I was like, it's just grass, but it's more than that. Grassland is really an essential open habitat that provide necessary food and shelter resources for the wildlife. It also supports about 40% of California native plant species out there. We also have two of my favorite native plants that I will talk about later. Grassland doesn't really have, it's not only have grass, but also have different other stuff. So here's some example of the forbs, which is like the wildflowers we found. Vinegar weed is one of my favorite plants. It's in the mint family. Lamiaceae puts out those gorgeous, you can't really see purple flower. The steam, the whole plants get this little volatile oil. So when you snap it, you can smell the strong vinegar smell. Some people hate it. Some people think it's disgusting, but I love it. I love the smell. And the little icon there, I get our information from the UC Davis Bee Haven. They have a whole list of what kind of native plants will provide what kind of resources for the pollinator. So the little butterfly icon is meaning that it provides a lot of like nectar for the butterfly, and then the little bee icon is meaning that they also provide pollen for the pollinators, a little bird down there. It's like provide the seed is like kind of edible for the wildlife and birds. So to kind of interpret the little icons there. The next one is the blue dates. First time I found it this year. It's in the Brodea family, Thermidaceae. It's also called the Indian potato family because they have underground corms. So corms are kind of like bulbs like onions, but onions, they're like modified leaves, so they're more like succulent leaf. But corms is they have more papery leaves and more fleshy, succulently stem. So, and that Brodea family has been like a really important starch resources for the natives people. So that's why it's also called Indian potato. But we found it here. The next one down there, the lupin, it's also my favorite plant. I wish the whole preserve is all full of lupin. My dream one day. We have various species out there, so I didn't put out like specific one. I think the bottom one's a sky lupin because they're like more tinier, and the upper one up there is the arroyo lupin, like the more annual purple-ish, and then kind of squish it to diagonally to the California Yabasenta. It's more like it's kind of a perennial plant, other than the annual plants that we just talked about. They are more woody, and it's a really cool plant. The resins are flammable in the leaves, so which make them a really good fire. They love fire, so when the leaves catch fire, they go crazy. And also make them a really cool fire follower, so they resprout very quickly after fire. And the seed, some of the seed when they put out in the ground, they need that fire, like the heat, to do the stratification so that they can germinate. A little fun fact. The honey that made from the California Yabasenta are amber color, and they got a little bit spicy flavor on it. I never tried it, but one day. Before I start my next little introduction, I have a little pop quiz. Do we know what is our state grass? Yes, it's on the slides, hint, hint. So it's purple needle grass. The purple needle grass, it became the state grass in 2004. It was believed that it was the most abundant grass out here in the California, but after colonization, it got replaced by like crops and stuff. So they're not abundant as before anymore, but you can see them out there. It got the name by the color of the seed. You can really see it there. But I got sometimes people confuse purple needle grass with the reap guts, which is an invasive weed. It looked kind of similar, got those like panicle and like long needle, but the reap guts, if you look closely, the long needle, they have barb on them. And when livestock intake them, they just like the word reap guts. That's where the name come from. They will like literally reap the livestock guts and then cause internal bleeding. Versus the purple needle grass, the needle it's not like any spiky, you don't like touch anything, and the seed is purple. Versus the reap guts, it's not purple, it's just like green color. I don't have the pictures here because the only native plants deserve it to be on my slides today. So, but if you're interested, I can help you like point you out what it looks like later. And just more on the purple needle grass, they really like the dry land, and like the sun-baked clay soil, so you can find it everywhere in Yolo County. And that's like a snapshot of the grassland. There's more out there, and today I spotted more poppy coming up. So there's more biodiversity and like different type of native plants out there. I just didn't put it on my slides. Next, changing gear to our tannery and garden. I don't have too much to talk about here. I do want to kind of brings you a little fun fact about the coffee berry. Do we know why it's called coffee berry? Any guesses? Yes, that's one of the reason. The beans looks like coffee, and second, it also has the effect of drinking coffee. So if you take too much of the berries, you will go to the restroom and you will not have a good time. The next down here is skunk bush. I would say it's a really cool plant because it changes color in fall, so it turns out to this like very fall vibe color. But it is I don't know if you notice that it kind of looks like this plant. Do we know what that is? Yeah, we all know it. It's poison oak. And skunk bush is the same family as poison oak, which is the Anacardiaceae. The family also always got those like 3 leaflets. But to tell them difference apart, if you look closely, there's a little stalk on the leaflets of the poison oak, but you don't see that on the skunk bush. And you can also tell them apart by their fruits. I don't have a picture of here, but poison oak have those little white ball fruits versus the skunk bush, they have red berries. If you're, but yeah. But still, if you're out and about and you're not sure, don't touch it. Or if you're a Dan, you can touch it because Dan is immune to it, but we're not all kids Dan. It also called skunk bush because when you rip off the leaves, they have little like compounds, so it smells like skunk. That's why it got the word. I never tried snapping the leaves yet, but I will let you know what it smells like after. And that's like all. There's way more plants out there in the TGG. I recommend that you check it out at the preserve. Next is our riparian forest. There's more out there. I just couldn't fit in everything over there. But I do kind of want to point you out to the right 3 plants out here. These 3 plants, we only find them very near the creek side. You don't find it like more upland on the creek. It's only right next to the water. I do want to little point out the seaside heliotrope down there. It's a little cool plant. We do have a non-native one. They kind of look similar, but you can't tell difference by their leaves. So the native heliotrope, they're more succulent and give out the blue and greenish color of the leaf versus the non-native one, they just like green, monoculture green. And the flower in the native one, it's they're bigger and showier. The non-native one is just like small. And one little cool fun fact about this plant, I think they have, sometimes you see 2 color, purple and yellow. I forgot which one is first, but I think it turned purple when it get pollinated. So it will stay yellow when it's unpollinated to like kind of indicate to the pollinators that this flowers do need help. Yeah. And then the next is our oak savanna. There's not too much on the story native plants in the oak savanna because the fire probably take a lot of plants out.
A lot of the upland oak habitat, it's kind of just a grassland, but with intermittent oaks. So we have some oak areas that are close to the slough, and that wants a little more understory that we'll be building back up. But as it transitions to grassland, you get fewer shrubs.
And then, of course, we have our valley oak. Most of the oak at the preserve are valley oak. We have 1 or 2 live oak, but it's not super conspicuous. It's mostly valley oak. Of course, poison oak, little sibling, but they're not in the same family. And this year, because thankfully the precipitation we also got a lot of minus lettuce coming up.
Love my
very cool. We
very
also
delicious.
very delicious. Not saying that you can eat them in our preserve, not to encourage you to take them. We also have some blue elderberry on like the understory, but in general, overall, our oak savanna mostly have the valley oaks there. The next, it's my favorite parts. It's the little memorial garden. We have a lot of plants out there. The goal for our memorial garden to showcase native plants throughout California. So sometimes you will see plants that is not really native to Yolo County, but we still take the facts in. And some plants I want to point out is the spice bush. It's not really, if you look up on Calscape, the region they're not really up all the way up to North California. They're more south, but I think it was there since its beginning.
I think it's been there for long time. That one spice bush was having a hard time. It did not like the drought. Especially because we were kind of closed during COVID. So it was like drought and lack of staff there to water. So there wasn't a lot of supplemental water happening, but
it's coming back.
Yeah, it's gonna do great.
And it's called spice bush because the bark has a really strong smell. That's why the spice bush coming from. And then the next is little bladder pot out here. It's called bladder pot by the fruits So you can kind of see it there, the little letter hanging there. They're in the spider flower family, the Cleomaceae. They're primarily found in Southern California, but because again, we want to showcase all native plants throughout California, so we have it there. It's also a great plan if you want to do it in your like backyard or front yard native plant garden. They flower year round, so they'll provide a lot of resources for the pollinators. They mostly bloom in spring, so right now it's like all yellow flowers in the memorial garden right now. But just little hints, they do put out like compound that trying to like let the herbivore to avoid it. So when you snap the leaves, it give you a little stinky smell. Some people don't like it, some people like it, but I don't personally like it. And then the little fright egg there. Do we know what plant that is?
Oh, I heard it.
Yes. Yes, it's the fried egg poppies, also the Romnea cauterii. This one is also, you found it more in Southern California, but again, we want to showcase that. And just a little fun fact, this fried egg poppy, it is the one of the largest and showiest poppy in the poppy family, and it almost become our state flower. But it lost the election to California poppy. So that's why our state flower right now is California poppy, but it was very close that it become our state flower. And the pollens, they got little potent alkaloids. So when the pollinators get in there and get their pollens, they would get a little bit drunk. So that's a little adaptation for the flower to like attract more pollinators. So once the pollinators land there and get the pollens, and they would get drunk and they just like start just kind of rolling, quote unquote, rolling in like the flower, and then get like all the pollen so that they can help pollinate it. And that's all the plants we have at the preserve. There's more out there. I just don't have enough time to go through everything, but highly encourage you to go for a hike. And if you wanted to pinpoint any plants, I'm here. We also get our like Great Dozen tour guide there. Yes. And I wanna finish it with a little game time. Can we tell how many black-tailed deers you can find in the photo?
No.
Yeah, it's a little quiz. Okay, I heard 6. Okay, I heard 7, 5, 4. Okay, do we want to know the answer? There's 6. Yes. And that's it for our presentation. Thank you for coming today. And if you want to know more about us, you can go on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter in case if there are any fun activities happening, you can get the first news. And then we have little seat package for everybody.
Everybody put their ticket in here. We have some late folks. Did you get it?
Everybody got a raffle tickets.
Ticket up line guide? Okay.
Where are you located?
So on Road 20 at 94B. So it's 34199 County Road 20. Right across the street from the Stallion Station. So if you, from here, I mean, it's kind of off Highway 6. It's easy from here.
You could go up Road 95, going 22.
Yeah. And we're open 6 days a week. So.
Well, the winner goes to
008. For the last 3 letters. All right. So this is our new plant guide. One of the things we've been doing in the TGG is writing a curriculum for educators. And we're going to be doing a sort of a teacher training this summer to teach 3rd and 4th grade teachers how to teach traditional to teach California history and with a sort of focus on Indigenous knowledge, like sort of what they call ISTEAM, Indigenous STEAM. So yeah, and so one of the things for the in-classroom tools is this plant guide that has Plants, a guide to the native plants of the Winton homeland. We spent a lot of time putting this together, I'm deciding what to put in here. It's got information about each plant. It's got the Winton name along with the botanical and English names. And it's just a fun resource to help learn your plants and learn why they're important culturally as well. So we're excited about the new curriculum and getting kids out there and using this whole nature preserve as an outdoor classroom and getting kids to think about plants as like I was saying, how Bertha taught as you're part of the, we're all part of the ecosystem and plants are our peers, not, sort of this hierarchical.
Why don't we give a hand to Rick?
We went like exactly. Yes, all right.
Any
We didn't
questions?
practice, so we had no idea.
Yeah, any questions?
Hopefully we took the right amount of time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned CAL FIRE earlier.
Mhm.
Do they have people that are knowledgeable about burning and staff that can do that kind of thing well, or do they not understand what this is very, very?
So when they came to us asking us to put on a sort of a cultural fire awareness workshop for their staff, partly was because they're trying to learn more about this. The state has realized that prescribed fire is a great fire prevention method. California is going to burn, like it just is. And so if you burn it when you want it, when you burn it in a controlled way at the right conditions, you have a much less severe fire and no loss of people and property. And then when we had CAL FIRE out, so they were kind of learning, they're so used to putting out fires that this, intentionally putting fire out on the ground can be a learning curve for fire professionals. But there were several people that came out with CAL FIRE that actually were native. There was one guy, Ray, he's a SoCal, can't remember what tribal nation he's from, but he came out and he was like, oh, your guys' mule fat is so, can I collect some mule fat while I'm here? I was like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, all right, we use it for our arrows. So that was his craft, is he makes arrows. But and then the gentleman who we work with at CAL FIRE who helped organize all of this and who came to us initially, and he is the tribal liaison, the official tribal liaison for CAL FIRE for the state. So even though they are sort of learning this, they're very sort of trying to stay ahead of, where things are going, I guess, in terms of where like the state wants to put focus and put money. And Lynne Nielsen, who's a tribal liaison, I think he's got one of his grandparents is native. So he did grow up in the culture a little bit and has a good sense about, what we should be doing. The model of suppression did not work. And so what's next? Let's talk to the people who manage this land for thousands of years before.
Well, all the CAL FIRE people that were there were really enthusiastic.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't go into a fire profession if you don't love
No, they were
being around fire. If fire makes you nervous, you don't work for CAL FIRE. Yeah. So definitely a few pyros on that. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Well, awesome. Don't forget to take a seed packet. These are seeds. It's not on here because I didn't want to put the what is on here in case we ran out of a seed type as we were making these. That way we don't have to reprint our stickers. But the graphic does show what's inside of this packet. It's yarrow, lupin, red maid, phacelia, and gum plant. So if you look at the little icons, you can tell.
And there's instruction on how to germinate them on the back. Yeah, so feel free to take some.
Everywhere
out there.
In the office, we just have our little scoops and our seed buckets and we make it.
Lynne, we got some question on the Zoom. Yeah.
So what sort of soil? I have lived soil experience. Different soils. My soil is very similar to your soil is like brown. So.
Probably, if you're standing, probably need more water. But, I mean, no, those wildflowers.
Did I stop?
Pretty much.
Should I stop the sharing?
you-
Oh, okay.
So it's
That was great.
yeah, I got seen all those pretty low.
That's great, thanks, Ivy.
Thank you. I got so nervous. I was like,
And
oh,
now
forgot about words.
people can read your article. Like,
Yeah.
she wrote a really great article I have, which I have, ready to go. I'm just waiting for, what's her name? From, she's working in Woodland Regional Park, Jennifer Hogan.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's writing one, also
Oh,
on
okay.
restoration efforts, yeah,
Oh, good.
and I'm just waiting for her to get it to me. She
So they are Yarrow.
isn't, hasn't quite gotten it, but I do right on it. First, ready to go.
I do have a question about if the visitor center is closed, how can we buy the plants? That question goes to Lynn, but she's busy.
And then is in Jim.
Yeah, and then I saw pictures from your garden. They're gorgeous.
Oh, that he took.
Yeah, I think he or his friend took, and then he sent it to me. I love it.
Oh, good. Those are the flowers in the garden. That's already. Hi, Glenn. I know, I know. I have to.
Take it, take it. Take more.
So cool.
Thank you for calling.
You can go to our. And the entrance came out and wanted to stay, and we had, well, you know, it's like. Your main family. It's just like. There are a few different ones, because I'm the one who's not up at the same garden. Job, I mean.
Yeah. Two pictures.
Well, that's what you said.
Yeah.
I do flower press and bug press. You can just watch it and like press and stuff and think it won't go back, but you can. I think we should want to like showcase the interns with it outside, because sometimes people never like go out. Yeah. What takes the like this is
Geology and soils. It's my bachelor's degree in sociology. Sorry, that was.
There's just, I really just got them.
Yeah, thank you.
Were you expecting a big check for this presentation? Yeah, how big?
I think Dad told me last, he said usually it's like 15 to 20 people, but I thought it was less than that. It was more people than I thought.
It varies. Varies. Let's see.